And we're having quite an afternoon here in Starkville. A couple of some pledges out there from a few fraternities. Kappa Sig, right? One of those guys asked me if I belonged to Kappa Sig. I said I couldn't afford to get near the fraternity row when I was in college. Anyway, Tanner Marlar joining us from the Reflector, and Stefan Krajisnik from the, I said that quickly, from the Clarion Ledger. Stefan and Tanner, thanks. We've seen you a couple of times before. Welcome to our show. It's great to see you.
Obviously a big fan, been watching for a while, and great to have you guys in Starkville, man. What a great scene, great crowd you guys got here so far.
We're about to talk to the Pirate here in a couple of minutes. You guys cover him, and I know it's almost become cliche to say what's it like, but I asked the guys last week about Lane Kiffin, so I'll start with you, Tanner. What is it like to be around the one and only Mike Leach?
Well, there's never a boring day, and there's this thing where you do kind of in journalism, just like I do, where you talk with guys from other beats and everything about what coach say this week in pressers and everything like that. This week it's been like, well, he answered what the 5 best things to bring to an 11 a.m. tailgate was. We didn't get anything on the offense though, but that's a daily thing.
And I don't know about you, Stefan, but I'm almost getting weary of the turning Mike Leach into a parody. I mean, he is a really good football coach.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there's a lot of fans in Starkville who are feeling the same way just because of the results that they bring in and, the improvements that he's had everywhere. I mean, you look at his previous 2 stops, that's the one thing that Mississippi State really needed here. After Dan Mullen left, you have Moorhead come in only for a couple of years. They really needed someone to bring stability, and everywhere Leach has been, 10-plus years at Texas Tech. He had, 8 or 9 years at Washington State. Like, he's a guy that brings, some stability to a program, and, he's funny and he has his jokes, but, there's a lot of people in Mississippi State who are really, high on what he can bring here, especially when you look at the past maybe 6 or 7 years at this program.
So when you cover him, I don't want to minimize the world that we're all in, but yeah, it's about getting people to read what you write. Is there this temptation, Tanner, to write about the quirkiness versus the serious Mike Leach?
Well, I think you have to find a good balance, Paul, because, we get the quirkiness every day, but also there's a great X's and O's mind to a lot of that. So you have to be able to balance that. Yes, we'll have the stories. You saw last week on his marriage advice, stuff like that. Obviously, that gets reported on, but we take a lot of pride in being able to report that, he is a great
I don't know about you, but why would Mike Leach be among the last people I would ever ask for marriage advice? And I don't know. I don't even know if I assume he's married. I have no earthly idea.
He is. His wife's down here in Starkville, and I guess his kids have been getting a decent amount of bankroll from him to elope and go on some nice honeymoons instead.
But that Mike, I knew that Mike Leach when he wasn't coaching. We used to work together a little bit at Sirius XM, and he's a really interesting guy, and I'm not talking about the crazy stuff that everybody. He's just a cool guy to talk to. I don't know if is that possible anymore, but now that he's being asked all these ridiculous questions.
Well, we get it in spurts. I remember last year we had he gave his speech or presentation on the similarities between the air raid offense and guerrilla warfare.
Right.
He gave that. I think you were there too. It was like a 2-hour presentation here on Mississippi State's campus, and that was when we kind of got to peel back the veil and see, this guy would be someone that he's really fun to talk to. He's very knowledgeable, not only just about football, but just history, and he's, like you said, he's just a very fun guy to talk to.
Stefan, the state of this program, I realize we're coming off a huge win. This is a big moment in time, which is one reason why we really wanted to be here. Obviously there was, an hour and 45 minutes to the east, a bigger so-called game. But I was thrilled that we ended up here because that game, Alabama will have plenty of big games, but that's an old story. This just feels like a new story with a win tomorrow against Arkansas, and there could be some real momentum for this team.
Yeah, I think that's how people, really feel with this program. Coming in, maybe, external expectations weren't that high, but, a lot of people here in Starkville thought this was a team that could go anywhere between 8 to 10 wins. You look at, the 7 wins they had last year and probably felt like that game at Arkansas was one they should have won. They kind of laid an egg there, no pun intended, in the Egg Bowl when Ole Miss came here, and just the same, in the Liberty Bowl against Texas Tech. There's this balance of, we've seen Mike Leach already do the things where he beats Texas A&M. I think there was, Mississippi State was a favorite last week against a really good A&M team, or at least one with a lot of talent that's maybe better recruiting-wise as opposed to what Mississippi State has here, I should say. But what we've seen the last couple of years is that, State will win this game against A&M and then drop that game at Arkansas. You think back to last year, I mean, the game at Memphis that they dropped. I think there's people here who are, okay, we believe, the fans believe in what Mike Leach has, but let's see it, consecutive games. Let's see you beat A&M and then go on and beat Arkansas too, and then go to Kentucky and pick up a big win. I think that's where the state of the program kind of lies, is that jump, ready to be made by this program.
And Tanner, I've never lived in Mississippi, but I've been here a lot. I grew up literally on the line, so I know the importance of Ole Miss. And how much of the Lane Kiffin, the Lane Train show, how much does that affect what happens here, just in terms of perception?
Well, in reality, Paul, it's like living in two different worlds.
Right.
You have the Mississippi State world where everybody's all aboard the pirate ship, and then just a short 2-hour drive to the north you have where everybody's all aboard the Lane Train. But they really don't mix, to me, during the regular season until we get to that fateful week in November every single year. But when we get to that week, sparks fly.
Yeah, I mean, they're hired at the same time, too, and Lane has, 2 wins in the Egg Bowl. It's something that people have circled here. I mean, even if Leach goes out and wins 8, 9, 10 games and he has a loss in that Egg Bowl, that's something that people are going to remember. 0-3 to start the Egg Bowl is not something that people here treat lightly.
Yeah, it just seems, because, I think it's pretty established. I covered the Iron Bowl. I don't know if I made a career. Well, I guess I did. But I think this is much nastier today than I don't think the Iron Bowl is even nasty anymore. Saban has ruined the Iron Bowl. I mean, it's not even. There's some epic games we all know, but this thing is just. I mean, I don't know if I want to be within the same time zone as the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving.
Well, we say it every year, no matter the record of the two teams, you have to go in thinking it's 50-50. No matter who wants to. The real determining factor is who shows up that day and wants to win worse in every Egg Bowl. That's the way it's been, and I grew up here. That's the way it's been all 21 years of my life.
And I'm new to it. I mean, I'm from Indiana originally. I moved down here last August, and right away, I mean, that's something I talk about that people always mention is the Egg Bowl. It matters. I grew up just outside Chicago where people are rooting for the Bulls. The White Sox-Cubs rivalry is what it is. I mean, there's no professional team here. Like, it's Ole Miss or Mississippi State, and it's going to matter. Even if you're 0-12 in a season, they're going to remember that one game that you lost in November.
So this year in the Egg Bowl, it's in Oxford?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Apologize for me not being a Magnolia State official. I mean, I should know that. If it doesn't go well, meaning a loss, does that take away from everything else? Is it that important?
To the fan base?
Yeah.
Yes. To the administration, the athletic department, I'm not as sure.
Yeah.
But to the fan base, absolutely. When Joe Moorhead was the coach of this team, I specifically remember people saying, they may not have won as many games as we'd have liked during the regular season, but they won the Egg Bowl, and that's the big one that matters to this fan base.
Yeah, and I mean, Leach got a 2-year extension, this past offseason. Right. I think he's got the support of John Cohen, the athletic director here, and some others around, the athletic department, some donors and things like that. But like you said, I mean, it's hard when the Egg Bowl is the last game of the season for it to not leave some kind of a sour taste when you go into the offseason.
Of course, we missed a year because of COVID, but the last time I sat here, about this time, Joe Moorhead was sitting across from me, and I would say it was one of the more forgettable interviews of my life. It was very difficult. It wasn't contentious. It was just awkward because everyone knew he was on short time.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I know for certain there are definitely a lot of fans that would like to forget the Joe Moorhead tenure here at Mississippi State.
Yeah, no, and Paul, you've had my good friend Ben Portnoy on a couple of times, covers South Carolina now. He was here covering more. We went to Indiana together, so I remember talking to him a lot while he was here covering State, and it was just kind of interesting because, you'd see them get those big wins. Everyone remembers the Egg Bowl with the dog, urinating celebration. Everyone remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so weird that, it was so certain that Moorhead was going to be gone. It was a really weird tenure that he had here, and like you said, a really forgettable one.
Yeah, and I think, that one Egg Bowl, Luke got swept out, excuse me. I was homeschooled. And then Moorhead loses the bowl game, right? And he's gone.
Well, it was the real.
There's more to it than that, yeah.
The real nail in the coffin was what happened leading up to that ball game. Garrett Schrader was actually the quarterback of that team, and you see what he's doing at Syracuse now. So, I mean, there were good players on that team. It was just a matter of, and the athletic department saw it too, of, changes needing to be made at the top.
Long term, it wasn't the solution. It was never going to be.
No, and I think those things happen, and I remember when Leach got the job. I mean, there was quite a buzz, and then was it just winning the press conference? I think he's obviously shown guys that he's won more than the press conference.
Yeah, I think people knew right away that he was going to bring the the humor and things like that to those press conferences, like you mentioned. But at the end of the day, I think people saw, as I mentioned earlier, like that's a guy that had been his previous stops for about a decade or so each place. Like that's what Mississippi State really needed. I think they saw that. The question was, was the air raid going to work in the SEC? Obviously, you come out, you break all the records in that first game against LSU, you beat the defending champs, but then you go on from there. You had your struggles at the end of year one, you had some struggles in year two, but there seems to be some consistency. Obviously, having a guy like Will Rogers, who's been here now his third season, running the show helps. But the recruiting is there with quarterbacks too. There's belief that it can continue.
Before you go, Leach will be here in a minute. Obviously, we know the record against Lane. There's been struggles against Pittman too. How big is tomorrow?
It's huge for this team because I think, we've already passed one turning point for this Mississippi State team in this season, and that was at LSU.
Right.
They go into that game, and there's not many times that Mississippi State is going to go into Baton Rouge favored by a lot of people to win. So I think on the flip side of that coin, it's not many times you host, a Texas A&M here and then an Arkansas team here that you're favored to win. So I think tomorrow is huge and kind of stamping the fact of this season that, hey, Mississippi State may be able to make some noise here in the West down the road. Yeah,
this is kind of their key stretch. I mean, this stretch where you had A&M at home, you got Arkansas home, and then you go at Kentucky before you go to Tuscaloosa. Like, this could be the defining stretch, of what this season is. Obviously, the Egg Bowl and playing Georgia and Auburn next month is going to be huge. But, like, this stretch here was like State has a good chance to go 2-0, maybe 3-1, could really define how the rest of the season goes for them.
Stefan, and thank you so much, Tanner. Great to see both of you. Mike Leach will be here in a couple of minutes. Right now, we'll head to the break. Much more to come as we are live in Starkville.